Hey, Mike.
Hey, Tim. So now we're moving into the objection handling model itself. You'll see above me we have these six stages which are currently blanked out.
Mhm.
You and I are now going to do a very quick role play where we explore how the objection handling model works, and I'm going to attempt to uncover the six stages as we move through them.
Sounds
My
good.
role is the objector. So I have the easy role here, and I'm going to start straight away. Tim, thank you for the proposal, but to be honest, it's too expensive and it's too complicated.
Okay, so too expensive. I'm assuming that that's a budget issue rather than a total price issue. And you also say that the complexity of the proposal is something that is difficult.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. So you're right in what you said. It's, the budget issue is a challenge, but really the complexity is something that's coming up for us as a real barrier for this.
And if the process were much easier and simpler to follow, would would the pricing still be an issue?
Yes, yes and no. I mean, pricing is always an issue, right? So it's
Mhm.
always important. But what we're really talking about here is getting the buy-in, and especially for me, because it's very much my responsibility on my shoulders to say, well, at the right price, maybe a certain amount of complexity is acceptable.
Okay, well, we can reduce the complexity of the proposal, but we can't reduce the complexity of actually the work that we need to do because the proposal at the moment literally writes down the reasons why this is going to be quite a complex project to put into play. So that's the answer that I have at the moment. Does that fit? Does that answer the question?
I mean, it answers the question, Tim, but I'm far from convinced here. I still have pretty strong reservations, especially around the complexity part.
Okay, well, I can see that that's going to be a topic that we're going to need to reassess. From I understand from your perspective that you need your organization to look at something and know instinctively and quickly what it is that they're going to be asked to do. From our perspective, we can't be moving into a project where people are unsure of what's going to happen, and therefore they may not do what they're expected to do. So, I can see it from your perspective. From our perspective, we have an issue there as well. So let's postpone this until our next meeting in 10 days. I'll take it back to the partners and see what they think about that. And I'm sure we'll come up with a solution. And let's put it on the back burner for now.
Okay. Sounds fine. So 10 days time we can look back around to it. I'm sure there's some way we can figure it all out.
Great. So, our objection handling technique, we begin with repeat. It's also called the acceptance phase, where we accept the objection. And Mike, anything interesting for you from that stage?
Definitely, possibly the most important stage of all. And for me, the reason this stage is so important to simply hear what the person has said and repeat something back to them. The key thing that this does is it stops you from doing what you would normally do, because most people are normally going to be somewhere around here, asking clarifying questions or just
Yeah.
responding to the objection. But the way of stopping doing that is just having that half a second of I'm just going to repeat back to them and then I'm going to wait for more information, which takes us to the second point, which is to pause. Tim, tell us more about that.
So the pause is just a reminder not to jump directly into the question, because if you look at the following, if your objection was it's too expensive, I say, aha, it's too expensive. How can we do something about that? That becomes an answer. Yeah. So if I go directly from repeat into a question, then the whole thing together becomes an answer. So the pause is the body language. It's waiting for the customer to look at you and kind of nod their head and say, yep, you've understood my question. You've understood me correctly. And very often they will do exactly that. They will actually begin nodding their head and then saying, yes, exactly, you've got my point. Yes, you've understood me. Yeah. And that's the psychological power of active listening. That's what we're trying to achieve with that pause stage. What about the question then, the clarify stage?
So the clarifying stage really, if we remember our visualization, very famous of the iceberg, where you have the position above the water and the interest below the water. The objection is the position. It's too expensive, it's too complicated, whatever it may be. But really, you don't know much about what that really means. You know, which one of those is more important? Is the real problem the price? Is it the complexity? Why do they consider that too complex? Is it to do with their own workload? Is it to do with how their systems work, et cetera, et cetera? So before you can accurately and answer their objection well, you have to understand their objection fully. And so the clarify stage is about exploring and understanding so that when you do answer, you really can answer their objection. Which takes us to the answering stage, Tim. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, sorry, just going back. So that means that if maybe they don't, they don't mean it's too expensive. Maybe they've got something else on their mind. Can you go back and forth between the repeat and clarify, repeat, clarify?
You can and you absolutely should. You should not see this as a purely linear process, one, two, three, four, five, six. It's very much a matter of using the active listening, repeating, pausing, clarifying question. And then you have to think to yourself, do I have enough information to give the answer? And if
Yeah.
not, then go back to the beginning and repeat again, clarify again, etc.
Okay. And the answer is, well, the best possible answer for that objection. And once you've got here, then hopefully you're really going to be answering the right objection that they've come up with. And for our participants, it's sometimes very interesting to know that the organization has put work into really developing the best answers to the questions. So we've worked with companies that have a process and a tool which is called a battle card, which is where the company will list their 10, 12, 20, sometimes more key objections, the ones that they receive most often, the ones which are most difficult to answer, the ones which are most critical to answer, and then they'll write the best answer on the back of the card. So you have objection and answer. And this gives the sales organization a great way to start really getting a feeling for, are these the right answers for this particular objection, or do we need to do something else? So we answer the objection, and then we check. What's the check stage?
Well, check is very simply to ask the question, does that solve your problem? Are you satisfied? Are you happy to move forward? Because of course, at the beginning, there's something of a gap between you where they've said, well, this is a problem, this is an objection. You've gone through this process and hopefully you are now aligned and together and ready to move forward. But you need to check that. So you simply need to ask the question, are you happy? Shall we proceed? Etc.
Great. And that leads us then finally to the counter stage. And the counter stage is only required if they very unfriendly do exactly what you did, which is to say, no, that doesn't answer my question. So the counter stage is called this counterbalancing. And if you remember from the example, I said, well, I understand it from your perspective. You have to appreciate that from our perspective, so, this is the company that I work for. That's the company that you work for. That's your practice. This is our, conviction, whatever it happens to be. And then postpone and see if you can work out some way of coming back to that topic again later. So postponing is a great way of coming out of the counter stage at the end. But it could be that you're simply in a situation where you're saying, I've got to this stage and I can't answer your objection in a way that's going to satisfy you. Let me focus on a part of my argument that we can agree to. Yeah. So that's the objection handling process. I think there's just two things that I would remark. Number one is related to the repeat stage, the active listening stage at the beginning. Sometimes, Mike, our participants say, doesn't it make you sound dumb if you just repeat what they say? What's your opinion of that?
Um, my opinion of that is it's actually not about them sounding dumb. It's about them feeling uncomfortable and unnatural in that process, and that is the part of it that causes a challenge. So our advice would be that it takes some practice and it takes finding your preferred method of repeating. So some people use maybe a more parrot-like technique where they just repeat the words back. You
Mm-hmm.
and I tend to summarize and say, okay, so what you're telling me is this, this, and this. Some people are even incredibly good at just pulling out a couple of key words. So they might say,
Okay.
oh, too expensive? And then sit back and the other person will elaborate on what they mean by too expensive. So I
Mm-hmm.
think the individual needs to find the technique that they like and that they can use comfortably.
Great. And the final point that I'd make is maybe just a statement regarding stage number three. Last week, I heard some amazing questions that came in as questions for the objections, and it really reminded me that that's where you really demonstrate your true value as a sales rep by bringing in a brilliant question where the customer is going, oh, oh, that's a good question. Yeah. And that music to my ears.
Yeah. So just to clarify one quick point there, Tim, we are presenting this model so that the audience of these videos can go away and train their people to use it.
Yeah.
Now, in the exercise, so they've done the first exercise where they've handled
Mm-hmm.
objections without the model. The
Mm-hmm.
trainer has now presented the model to them, and now they
Yeah.
go into the second exercise. So in the
Yeah.
second exercise, do you want them to follow all 6 stages? I'm just aware that that might take some
Oh,
time in these role
thanks very
plays.
much. Yeah. And the answer is no. In the second exercise, if everybody can follow points number one, two, and three, then that is more than enough. So we can move it up to the answer, but we don't need to answer the objection itself. Yeah. And that's actually very good practice in general, because a lot of the objection handling is done within stages number one, two, three. And of course, you always need to have the answer there, but very often the objection changes so significantly when you're doing the good active listening that the conversation becomes another one entirely. Thanks very much, Mike.
Thanks, Tim.